No one ever thinks about how complicated food really is. You get hungry, you eat, you're satisfied. It's simple. You don't really think about food until you really need to think about food. You get sick, you want to feel better. An unhealthy diet contributes to 678,000 deaths in the US per year. You want to be an athlete, you need to fuel your body. 70% of U.S. public high schools have athletic training services, and 37% have full-time athletic trainers. You know what trainers do? They teach you how to eat. You have a huge test, and you need to do well. Studies show that a healthy diet is far more successful than supplements or drugs. You really don't want to age like your best friend is. Research shows that gut health is vital to looking and staying young. You want to remember the good stuff in your life. The Mayo Clinic says that a balanced diet like the Mediterranean diet can help with preventing Alzheimer's disease. Then food, diet, and lifestyle all of a sudden becomes important. But until then, nobody thinks about how complicated food really is. The human body is remarkably simple, yet complex. Each morsel of food that goes into the mouth is broken down into tiny little pieces that has a chemical reaction from within the mouth all the way through to the colon. Most people think about the mouth and the stomach, but don't realize that the majority of what makes up them is down deeper in the gut. A strong and healthy gut is the basic requirement for human health. Food scientists call the gut the second brain, and duly so. There are more neurons in our gut than in our brain. And the gut bacteria that gives us our health and most of our personality traits outnumber human cells 10 to 1. Considering the characteristics of gut microbiota, such as the large diversity, the stability, and resilience, and the symbiotic interaction with the host, we can define the host and the microorganisms inhabiting it as a superorganism, which performs 70% of our immunity and metabolic functions. So what does the gut do? Because the gut has about 100 million neurons more than either in the spinal cord or the peripheral nervous system, the gut forms the enteric nervous system, which allows us to get that gut feeling. Most people think the gut is only our intestines, but this second brain of ours is approximately 23 feet long, starting from the base of our mouth to the anus, and takes about 24 to 72 hours for food to be completely processed. The human gastrointestinal tract contains an abundant and diverse microbial community that gathers more than 100 trillion microorganisms. The density of bacterial cells in the colon has been estimated at 10 to the power of 11 to 10 to the power of 12 per milliliter, which makes the colon one of the most densely populated microbial habitats known on Earth. These bacteria represent between 300 and 1,000 different species. The gut microbiome encodes over 3 million genes, producing thousands of metabolites, whereas the human genome consists of approximately 23,000 genes. The total weight of the bacteria in any given human body is 0.3% of body weight, about the size of your brain. Most people don't realize that when you eat comfort food, there's a reason why you feel better. You're feeding the bacteria that produce those hormones. 90% of serotonin is produced by the microbes and by the gut cells. Beneficial bacteria in your gut also increases GABA receptors in the brain, which helps the body to relax and sleep soundly, provides relief from anxiety and stress, and may reduce high blood pressure. As food technology has advanced to produce increasingly shelf-stable products through the addition of dietary additives, we are observing a corresponding increase in chronic inflammatory diseases associated with intestinal barrier dysfunction and bacterial dysbiosis. Although these additives have been designated as generally recognized as safe, or GRAS, by the FDA, more and more studies suggest that these agents may not be safe for individuals with other risk factors for chronic disease. It is also unknown whether these GRAS additives have a pathogenic threshold, as consumption of these agents is not formally measured by any standard diet questionnaire. Notable studies have demonstrated a direct effect of these compounds on mucosal barrier integrity, which translates to exacerbated intestinal inflammation or increased bacterial burdens in animal models. Likewise, restrictive diets that eliminate processed foods are showing clinical promise in eliminating disease symptoms and promoting mucosal healing in both adult and pediatric IBD or irritable bowel disease patients. It's postulated by researchers that dietary additives such as MDX or maltodextrin are potentiators of disease and, if true, could explain the suggested efficacy of seemingly disparate diets on intestinal inflammation. The average American consumes about 156 pounds of sugar every year as baked goods, candies, and gums. The body craves carbohydrates for energy, but sugar is also an excitotoxin. It reacts in the brain like the stimulant cocaine and is just as addictive. Sugar is also an antimicrobial used as far back as the Napoleonic Wars. So if it prevents bacteria from growing on wounds, what does it do in the gut? Researchers from the UK found that in high concentrations, sugar causes complete inhibition of bacteria. Industrialized foods didn't become a real thing until the 1700s. Most people ate at home, and food was grown either on farms locally owned or grown in a kitchen garden. In the early 1900s, monosodium glutamate was discovered in Japan, and manufacturers started adding it to their recipes because it would make the public crave their products and buy more. Monosodium glutamate was somewhat of an addictive flavoring. In World War II, MSG took the U.S. by storm, and food manufacturers fighting against the home kitchen were winning. It wasn't until the 1960s, when numbness at the back of the neck, gradually radiating to both arms and the back, and general weakness and palpitation was reported en masse to the New England Journal of Medicine, and researchers had success proving both the short-term and long-term dangers of MSG, showing signs of brain lesions in animals and symptoms in humans. Glutamate is now referred to as an excitotoxin. But food manufacturers of that day were smart. They didn't know that when glutamate is involved in oral and post-oral nutrient chemosensing that involves gustatory nerves and gut-brain pathways with an impact on gut function and feeding behavior. Glutamate functions as a signaling molecule in the enteric nervous system and modulates neuroendocrine reflexes in the gastrointestinal tract. The oral taste sensation of glutamate involves its binding to the oral umami taste receptors that triggers the cephalic phase response of digestion to prepare for food digestion. Glutamate is sensed again in the gut, inducing a visceral sensation that enhances additional gut digestive process through the visceral sense. As you can see, food additives can either kill the gut, as with maltodextrin, which is a standard additive of sweetener blends and artificial sweeteners, or can excite the brain and gut to gorge like MSG. What if? What if instead of programming the gut to think it needs to eat or gorge, like glutamate, or changing the gut bacteria entirely with sugar or MDX, what if we influence the gut to make it stronger? What if we influence the bacteria to work better to help us endure more, live longer? What if we could give the gut components that would heal the other influences that come at us environmentally, mentally, and physically? What if we could make something that humans consume every day that would help their health, be beneficial to them, sometimes without them even making the conscious decision to eat healthy? The most beneficial habit for good gut health is prebiotics. Prebiotics help healthy bacteria grow in your gut, and it's mainly diverse fiber. Most people only get 8 grams of fiber per day when actually they need over 20. The thing is that when you tell people they need more fiber in their diet, they usually turn their noses up. Nobody wants to hear that they need to eat more vegetables when there's cookies on the table. So how do we make the gut food desirable for everyone to eat? We make couture or gourmet foods and ingredients. We make beneficial designer ingredients to address specific problems with custom solutions. Sweeteners that lower blood sugar by feeding the beneficial flora and creating a thriving community of organisms whose main purpose is to make the host healthy. Flours that lower cholesterol and prevent bone loss. Butters that make good bacteria bloom, causing a thermic effect, making the host lose fat. Candies that not only prevent tooth decay, but help the gut create energy without outside stimulants like caffeine, excessive B vitamins, or sugar. Sports nutrition that helps the cell perform pre and post with better cooperation from the gut in creating energy and accomplishing recovery and healing. All this from a mission statement that increases the understanding and implementation of gastrointestinal health. Functional foods and ingredients that are designed to use the gut as the culture tube for natural healing reactions and the unequivocal performance of the body as the desired result.